The theme duality, I think it's actually probably pretty close to me because I've been living in a kind of duality realm all my life. That is part of my nature. And human nature, I think, is really a kind of a dual thing because we always sometimes want something we cannot have, or we want to have two different things and they're not compatible. There's always choices to be made that cannot coexist somehow. So the theme in that sense is fairly easy to work with. Well, I mean, there's certainly, yeah, I mean, that way there's duality in many ways in my life. So born in Poland, grew up in Denmark, living in the US, and also I want to be in both countries at the same time, and that is difficult. So there's things you like where you are, but you cannot have things that are on the other side. So, but that's also why I travel back and forth all the time. So I spent my summers in Denmark and my work in the US. You know, inspiration is a funny thing. Sometimes ideas come and you cannot write them down or draw them fast enough, and other times you're in a hole where you think this is the end. And you can say that's a duality of an artist's life also, that you think this is it, you've done everything you could do and there's nothing more coming from anywhere. And then all of a sudden it comes pouring in again and you just can't stop. So it's, you never know where it is. How it relates to the duality, it's, I think every person who looks at it can probably get his own meaning out of it in a certain sense, but the way I see it is the piece itself is called Yearning, and the way it's twisted is two people, or maybe the same person, yearning for two different things as it's going in different directions, and they're connected in one piece and they cannot separate. So yearning outwards but stuck where they are, you know. So that's the duality of this little piece. I work in many different ways, but relating to this piece, it's built in wax first. And then it's actually a casting process, almost like bronze, where you invest the wax in the material that goes in the kiln, you melt out the wax, and you go put the whole mold in the kiln, and then you pour glass into it that fills the cavity. And then later, cold working, diamond grinding to get the piece. That is where the process itself is built in clay first. You make a rubber mold, so you get, again, a negative of the positive, and then you make another mold, so you get a positive in the plaster, and eventually you get the glass. And the glass from the backside is painted with a reverse painted, so you have to do what you see first, and then later the other layers. And these are done with two pieces of glass, and they have to match up completely, and then you put them together back to back. And then you get the three-dimensional figure inside the glass. I was first an autodidact artist in ceramics. So I did almost what I do now in glass, but in relief in ceramics. And eventually I decided to go back to school in Copenhagen in ceramics. And there I went past the door and there was like a little light coming out of the keyhole. And I opened the door and they did glass in there. I said, I walked in and never came out. So that was the start. And then later finished school in Copenhagen. You have to move on, and there was no places really in Europe. So I went to the US, and there was so much glass done there that you couldn't imagine at that time. And I went there to stay for 1 year, and now 37 years later, I'm still there. So.